Okay, so we're at Act 2, Scene 4, which is the last scene of Act 2. Now, Act 2 has been dominated by Duncan's murder. Act 1 has been the lead up to Duncan's murder, and Act 2 is all about the murder itself and how it's impacted Macbeth specifically and the people around it. In fact, I would say that if you look at Act 2, Scene 2, that's all about how it impacted Macbeth more than anyone. Act 2, Scene 3 is how it impacted the closer kind of circle, people like Malcolm, Donalbain, Macduff, things like that. And then Act 3, Scene 4, we for the first time are outside Macbeth's castle, and this is how Duncan's death impacts the rest of Scotland. So if you can kind of see that Act 2, like we said, is all about the impact that Duncan's death had, then structurally it's kind of opening out in concentric circles. So we've got Act 1, Scene 2, which is just after Duncan's death, which is how does it impact our tragic hero, our main character of Macbeth. Then we've got Act 2, Scene 3 is how does it impact the other characters that we know about in this play. And then Act 2, Scene 4 is how does it impact the rest of Scotland and society at large, right? And then that comes to the end of Act 2. So we're just seeing increasingly larger impacts on Scotland, and we're seeing how they link in and connect with one another in different ways. So Act 2, Scene 4 opens with Ross, who we've already met, the Thane of Ross, as a kind of minor Thane in this play, and an old man. Now, so we have an unnamed character here. An unnamed character is often used as being representative of the people in some way. He is an old man, and the fact that he doesn't have a name means that he could be any old man. He could be any peasant or any worker or anything like that in society. And so he's representative of society as a whole by being depersonalized. By being depersonalized, he's made just a typical commoner, and so he can represent those ideas. And that's emphasized by his opening line, which he says, 70 I can remember well, within the volumes of the time I have seen, hours, dreadful things and strange. So he's an old man, he's seen loads of things. He's seen all sorts of things happen in Scotland for years and years and years. I could tell you a million things that I've seen. But this sore night hath trifled former knowings. Of all the things I've seen in all my years, and he's representative of all the old men in Scotland, of all the things they've all seen in all their years, nothing has been quite like this night. So, what has happened? What has happened around Scotland? Well, Ross is talking to this old man and getting a sense of it. He says, good father, thou seest the heavens are as trouble as a man's act, threaten his bloody stage. By the clock, 'tis day, and yet dark night strangles the travelling lamp. So, by the clock, it's daytime. It should be daytime, and yet it still seems like night. He says the dark night strangles the travelling lamp. It's night's predominance or the day's shame that darkness does the face of the earth entomb when living light should kiss it. So when living light should be part of this world, darkness has entombed the whole earth. Now, whether he's speaking metaphorically here, or whether or not Shakespeare's suggesting some kind of supernatural power has taken place, like an eclipse, for example, and that light has actually gone out of Scotland and rendered dark, it's difficult to say. People who stage it do it in different ways. But it's suggested that it is implied when Ross talks about it that it is literal, that perhaps some kind of eclipse has taken place and the day has been rendered dark, literally physically dark. So the darkness that we had in Macbeth's castle before has spread across Scotland, has spread to other places. And as the old man says, and we're really coming back to this idea, 'tis unnatural, even like the deed that's done. And so we get the idea that the killing of Duncan as king was a subversion of nature. And then we're provided with examples of things that have happened that night after Duncan's death that are weird and supernatural and also subversions of nature. On Tuesday last, a falcon, towering in her pride of place, was by a mousing owl hawked at and killed. So this old man has seen a falcon, a powerful falcon, by a small owl, murdered. Unnatural. Unnatural things are taking place. And Duncan's horses, Ross says, a thing most strange and certain, beauteous and swift, the minions of their race, turned wild in nature. They broke out of their stalls, they flung out, contending against obedience, and would make war with mankind. So Duncan's horses went crazy, these normally normal beasts. Again, unnatural. 'Tis said they eat each other. Duncan's horses are eating each other alive. That's how weird and supernatural and unnatural everything has gotten. And this is just really serves to show the impact that Duncan's murder has had on the whole world, on all of Scotland, and how everything's going weird and everything's going strange and everything's going bizarre. Things are not right. The natural order has been thrown completely out of kilter. There's a little bit of discussion about what's going on, but we do see here that people are reacting to it differently. We get the final introduction at the end here that so there's a discussion, who did it? Macbeth killed them. Oh, alas the day. Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's two sons, are stolen away and fled, which puts upon them the suspicion of the deed. This is interesting. Macduff says that. So Macduff has joined here. Enter Macduff. Macduff says that because Malcolm and Donalbain ran away, some people are suspicious that they might have killed the king. Good for Macbeth in this situation. And Ross says, this is against nature even more, and says that it is most likely then, with Malcolm and Donalbain leaving, there being no heir to the throne, that sovereignty will therefore fall upon Macbeth. So this is the prophecy. Macbeth will become king, because there's nobody else. And Macduff says he is already named. And he has gone to Scone to be invested, so to be crowned, to be made king. Now, there's a final really interesting exchange here, which is that Ross says, will you to Scone, which is where Macbeth is being crowned. And Macduff says, no cousin, I'll to Fife. So Macduff, the subtext here is that Macduff is not fully supportive of this idea of Macbeth becoming king. He's not going to go see him crowned. He's going to go off back to Fife, where he comes from. Ross will go. I will thither. I will go to see him crowned. And so Ross is supportive of Macbeth's new sovereignty and Macbeth's new position. Macduff, not so much. Well, may you see things well done there. Adieu. And then we have this reference to clothing imagery again. Lest our old robes sit easier than our new. He's worried that the old positions that they had might have sat easier than any new positions that they might have. That things now are not necessarily as fitting as they were before. So we've returned to this idea of robes not quite fitting. And the positions that people are in don't fit. And so that natural ordering and position where people should have doesn't really apply anymore. So, what is this scene? This scene is also a little bit of a breathing space at the end of the act. Not much happens. They're just discussing the consequences of what has happened, right? But it's really showing the impact that this change has had on Scotland, and also it's giving a little bit of a plot point where it's saying Macbeth is now king and how different people are reacting to that. It's an important scene because it sets up Macbeth as king in Act 3 and how he's going to deal with all of that.